Hello. Welcome everyone to the very first Whole Brain Teaching Inclusive session of our year. My name is LaKedria Lozano. I am a gold certified instructor and I'm from Ohio. I teach K through 12 everything because I own and run my own school. It's good to be queen. And I am joined by my wonderful, wonderful, wonderful team here. Laura and Don, and I'll let them introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Laura Forehand. I'm an executive board member of Whole Brain Teaching and also co-host Whole Brain Teaching, the podcast. I will be teaching third grade next year, which is new and exciting for me. And I'm in Northwest Missouri, and we're so happy that you guys are with us today.
And I'm Dawn McGregor. I live in La Marz, Iowa. I teach first grade, and I'm a platinum certified instructor. Welcome.
Thanks, everyone. So this is all of our first time doing this, so we're all still cool, okay? So just bear with us. Well, today we wanted to come on and talk about how to make your whole brain teaching displays in your classroom and your classroom in general kind of more accessible when you're planning. But before we kind of get into the meat of everything, just want to go over a couple of things that you've probably seen already, but it does not hurt. All right, so I'm sure that you have seen this lovely, amazing book that Coach has written, Whole Brain Teaching for Challenging Kids, the second edition. If you haven't picked it up yet, run to Amazon, run. It's amazing. It's modular, and I'm a music teacher. I've been waiting for modules in Whole Brain Teaching for a while now. So it is modular, and you can pick out what you need when you need it. So he has it expertly designed into these various modules, and you can just pick and choose what you as a teacher need to do or not do at the time. So I think it's wonderful. Do you guys have anything to add about this lovely book? It's amazing.
I agree with you wholeheartedly.
Great. Excellent. So keep a lookout there. So some of the things that we're going to talk about are not in the book, but that's okay. Coach has given us the green light to kind of talk about how to make all of this accessible. So that's what we're going to do. So we're moving on here. So, yep, all of these lovely modules. Again, it's fantastic. And then we have links to free graphics, and we'll post those a little later. If Dawn has them, she can post them now, but we'll get those into the chat as well. All right, so my first question, I always like to ask this during our sessions, is why is inclusion important? Go ahead and put it in the comments. Why do you guys think that inclusion is important? I couldn't find a really good definition of inclusion that I liked, so I want to hear from you as teachers. Why is inclusion important? So let's see if we can grab some comments and talk about it a little bit. And I'm trying to watch as well. Okay. Yeah, feel free to answer in the chat. Answer that question in the chat. Thank you, Weston, for the book link. Okay, so I see a comment from Facebook user. Inclusion allows all students to learn from each other. I like that. Let's see. I have another Facebook user. It's important because everyone has something they can learn from others. I'm sorry, can't see the other one. Everyone has the opportunity to listen and build on what others might have to say. Okay. I love it. I'm here to teach all students. Yes. Excellent. So yes, all these things you're saying, everybody is absolutely correct. And sometimes when we think about inclusion, especially as teachers in our planning, because we have so much stuff to worry about, inclusion kind of goes to the back of our brain and kind of gets tucked away along with all the rest of the stuff that we want to put off, for the school year, we really don't want to think about. Inclusion often gets tucked away. So we want to kind of bring it forward in our planning. So I hope this helps. This session helps us as we plan for the next school year. So let's get started here. So here are some quotes. So this is from Coach B in his book. The less work you do outside of class, the more work your classes will be. And I'm gonna hit this hard. You have to prepare for your classes outside of class. I know that, we don't like to take work home. We don't like to do it, but it's very important that we come into our classes well prepared and armed with everything that we think we're going to need, being very intentional about what we're doing. And then here's another quote that I loved by John Maxwell. When you live each day with intentionality, there's no limit to what you can do. You can transform yourself, your family, your community, and your nation. That's powerful for teachers. I love that. It's very powerful as teachers, and it's something to really kind of chew on as, again, we go forward in our planning for this upcoming school year. All right, so here are some general tips. Okay, be intentional with your planning. That is my first point. Be intentional with your planning. Try to think about situations that might arise during your school year so that you can be one step ahead of the game. Okay, so Laura, can you talk about maybe some situations that might show up in our year that we might want to be prepared for?
Yeah, so thank you, LaKedria. For me, I've been learning a lot about students that might be dysregulated. And so being prepared for students, like we use Strong 5. If you're not familiar with that, get yourself familiar with that, because that's a way that we can help our students when having a meltdown situation. So being prepared for those situations, we know they're going to be happening. I think what you said at the beginning, LaKedria, is paramount. We have to be prepared for anything in our classrooms.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you, Laura.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Dawn, you as Laura and Dawn both teach general education. Do you have some things that might arise, maybe some situations that maybe you are or aren't prepared for? There's a couple.
Yeah, thanks. The district I'm in, the building I'm in, we have our district's behavior disorder classroom. So whenever I get students from that or level 3 special ed classroom, I make sure to really work with their teachers too on what accommodations and systems have already been successful for them in kindergarten and try to build off of what we know already works for those children.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you. I know for me as a music teacher, seeing, 100 to 400 kids, we see the whole building. We're often not sure what we're going to see. And you guys too, as general education teachers, we're not sure what is going to walk or who is going to walk into our classroom.
Mm-hmm.
So anything can happen. And that's part of what, the planning intentionally means. Let's think ahead. Let's, what if a kid breaks their leg? We're not talking about, the kid's in a wheelchair, the kid needs this or that. What if a kid breaks their leg, their arm? How are we going to manage that kind of thing? So thank you all for kind of sharing that. So next, you want to make sure your expectations are the same for everyone in the room. And when I do my next session on like the rules and the magic circle, I'll talk more about that, go more in depth. Don't assume anybody needs help. Leave some space for people to have their independence. Again, we'll get into this stuff later. No fear, no failure classroom. If you know anything about whole brain teaching, there is no fear, no failure. Everyone is still cool. Allow for questions, be that safe space. Let the students show you what they know how to do instead of us assuming that, we know what they know. They're going to show you what they know. Okay, and then this next point is paramount. Okay, remember that when we talk about inclusivity, we are not just talking about students with disabilities. We're talking about students with different backgrounds, different cultures, different home environments, everything that, is not necessarily our typical things that we do. We have students with varied backgrounds that we need to consider in our planning as well. So again, in whole brain teaching, we like to do a lot of like 30-second dance parties. Well, maybe you have a student that is not allowed to listen to music. as a music teacher, I've had so many students who couldn't participate in some of the classes because of religious beliefs or something else. And that was okay. We just, worked around all of that. But this is the kind of stuff that we have to kind of think about as we are planning out our year. And as we're planning our classroom, getting our classrooms ready. Right. So any thoughts on that, Laura or Dawn? It's kind of more like a show.
Yeah, no, the only thing I was thinking about, I really like that last point that you came up with, because, and one thing to remember too, as we're planning, is that inclusivity shouldn't, and there shouldn't be excluding or, in other words, like sending a student out into the hall until you're done with that. So maybe rethink how you want to do those dance parties if dancing is not allowed or music is not allowed in the home. Are there other things that we can do? I think that was a really good point that you brought up, LaKedria.
Dawn, anything?
Thanks, LaKedria. Yeah, the point of thinking of all students and their backgrounds and their cultures. We're not just looking at disabilities, like thinking of them as a whole person with their backgrounds and cultures in mind as well.
Excellent. Thank you so much, everyone. All right, moving on. All right, so let's talk about what our classroom setup might look like. So whole brain teaching poster, super improver, alpha hawk wall, all of that. So let's look. So setting up your whole brain teaching classroom with some things to keep in mind for inclusivity. My favorite thing to tell everyone, and if you see me around on Facebook, this is my favorite piece of advice. Whole brain teaching has awesome graphics, awesome posters, everything that you can hang up around your class and make your class wonderfully whole brain teaching, right? What you want to consider doing, what you might consider doing, is making sure that anything hanging on a wall, that's the magic circle, your rules, your power picks, anything like that hanging on the wall needs to be somewhere else in your classroom or somewhere else accessible to every single student. They need to be able to interact with these posters. You want them to see the posters on the wall to do the rules. You want them to be able to see the gestures and everything on the power, read what's on the power pick. You want them to be able to do this, and you want to make it accessible. So think about how you have your classroom set up. And maybe Dawn is a first grade teacher, so she might deal with this more than I might deal with this. You have a student, and maybe your desks are set up in kind of like this row formation, right? And you have Susie all the way in the back, trying to see a power pick on the wall, right? Well, Susie hasn't been diagnosed, or Susie hasn't been to the eye doctor ever in her life and doesn't know that she needs glasses. So Susie's back there struggling to see this power pick on the wall. So Dawn might have a folder or a binder with these power picks in them, so she can go reference them whatever she wants. Same thing with like the magic circle. You have Jimmy in the back there who, again, hasn't been diagnosed with an eye condition yet, but they need glasses and they're struggling back there. So you want to make sure that these things your students can see, they can interact with, and they can manipulate them as they need to. The same thing goes for anything that is displayed digitally. You want to be able to describe what's on the board briefly. So if you have a picture of maybe the first part of the magic circle and it's our class, yes, you want to say, oh, this is a picture of somebody folding hands. We're going to fold our hands. So you need to be able really to describe what you're projecting. And you can include that within your lesson, things like that. It doesn't have to be a whole long thing, but you want to be able to describe that. And then this is just another couple of things. Consider flexible seating if possible. You have kiddos with just who don't like to sit. Maybe they prefer standing or kneeling or whatever. I always gave my students opportunities to stand at their desk. And then consider adding a sensory path in your classroom. This does not have to be anything special. I took masking tape and just wrote out a huge box. And I said, and I knew my kiddos that needed to get up and move and up and down, they had the ability to just go back to that little box and walk around it, jump in it. I didn't care what they did. It was all the way in the back of my room. They weren't messing with anybody. They weren't bothering anybody else, and they got their wiggles out. So Laura and Don, can you guys elaborate maybe some things you've had in your classrooms?
Yeah, so I have a sensory area in my classroom too, LaKedria, based on what the whole brain teaching conferences you and I did last year over Zoom. And so that was such a great idea. And it's really been an amazing addition in my classroom. It really helps those kiddos who need just a little bit of, they're dysregulated, they need to regulate a little bit. And I have lots of different ways that they can do that, be it yoga poses, breathing. Like you said, maybe they just need to do some jumping jacks or something. So great advice. I really like that one.
Thanks. I use it too now, and I use it more than because I said it last year, and I'm like, oh my goodness, I need to utilize this more, and it was so handy this year.
Mm-hmm.
What about you, Don? Do you have anything?
Yeah, thanks, LaKedria. In my mind, like I want all the students like sitting in their desks, but I need to be aware that some students need to get up and move. So maybe having those students toward the edges or the back so they're not standing and blocking other students who can sit. I try to have the students come to the carpet quite a bit. That's not always comfortable for students either. And giving them the option of being able to stay at their desk. And a lot of times I make sure those students have a desk that's close to the carpet so they're still a part of the group, but not way far in the back of the room.
Thank you. Wait. Awesome. Great. Okay. All right. And these are just some more physical space considerations in your classroom. Make sure you create various pathways in your classroom for students who might need, again, more space, students that might be in wheelchairs, students with service animals, students with who end up with a sprain and broken knee or leg or something like that. Consider having, and this is helpful too, if you have a student with like a guide dog or a medical alert dog, give the doggy space to kind of lay down and stretch out. Have a service animal policy. I don't know if anyone has ever thought of this, but I have several of my friends who utilize guide dogs for blindness, and got to leave room for the puppies because, and most teachers don't have that kind of a policy in the room. So students don't know how to interact with the dog because you're not supposed to interact with a service dog as they're working, right? So if you teach the littles and you have somebody coming in with a dog, guys, remember, we don't pet the dog. We don't touch the dog. So-and-so will give you permission if when the time is right. Things like that for the little kids or for the older kids. Hey guys, dogs in harness, don't touch the dog, don't talk to the dog, don't pet the dog. So consider having some policy because again, I don't know if anybody has service animals in their classroom. I have. I've had several. So you have to kind of make that known and make sure the owner of the dog can tell you, kind of the rules for their dog. And then again, be able to describe various pathways and spots in your classroom. Be able to describe to someone how to get to the pencil sharpener, how to get to the back of the room to get a drink, how to get to the door, how to get to their locker, etc. Because if there's a fire or everything, you want to be able to have pathways for everybody to get out, everybody to move on, and it should be kind of an independent thing. Anything on that, you all, Don and Laura?
Oh, I was just going to say, in addition to describing it, actually having the students practice, what does it look like when you walk to the pencil sharpener or to go to get your mail out of the mailbox? How are we going to move in a way so we're not stepping over each other or running? So practicing those procedures as well.
Yeah, really good point, Dawn.
Awesome. All right. Hang on. Okay, so these are some of like the whole brain teaching posters that we normally use in our room and kind of ways to bring them to the students. Again, have them in places where students can interact with it. Make them available digitally with alt text. And at the end of this, I'm going to show you how to alt text a photo. Consider making name tags or nameplates with WBT information on it. So I have just something simple here. The student's name would go at the top. I have the magic circle. I have the brainies. I have the wonder words. It's very simple, very basic, but again, it's information brought to a student's level. And again, they can interact with it. And then make sure that you may have to enlarge some print for some students. You may have to do something else for some students to make this, make it work that way. Same thing with the Alpha Hawk wall and Super Improver wall. Consider having, and I did this, and it's work, but it's not. I had a physical and digital display for my Alpha Hawk wall and my Super Improver wall. It just helped, again, because I want all students to be able to interact with it. If it was, if I added something to the wall, it got put on the digital wall. If I added stars to the Super Improver physical wall, it got put on my digital wall. So anytime anybody wanted to see it, they can access it, and it was updated information. It's kind of all about that intentional planning. Make sure everyone knows how to keep track of their stars in their own way, and I'll show you a couple of options for that on the next page. Consider having a digital saved copy of your Alpha Hawk wall for the year. So think about your Alpha Hawk wall and how cool it would be to have this running document or photos or album of your Alpha Hawk walls from years past. So you can go back and, look at it. Students can go and access it. For anything digital, include alt text. And again, I'll go over how to do that here in a momentarily. Chris or Laura or Don, I'm still cool.
You're so cool.
Do you guys have anything to add?
The only thing I'm going to say is I'm going to steal number 3 for sure. I love the idea of putting old Alpha Hawk pictures of your wall into a binder. So kind of gives kids an idea of what it's looked like in years past. Great idea.
Awesome. Don, anything?
I like the idea of you could have your Alpha Hawk wall be digital and have a slideshow that maybe once a week on Alpha Hawk Monday or something that you could just quickly play it and everybody could see everybody's Alpha Hawk. That would be kind of a fun thing to do too.
I love that. Oh my goodness. That's a really good idea too. All right. And I'm going to show you, I have some photos here of Super Improver, ways to kind of keep track of stars. So this first picture here, I just have a piece of yarn with beads, and it's the turtle level. So it has 5 beads or 4 beads on it. And then I have the same kind of photo, but I have beads taped onto the stars or glued onto the stars. Again, it's a little bit of work if you have a student who needs that tactile information, but it's a really good way for that student to be able to keep track of their stars. And again, digitally would work nicely as well, but this is another cool way in your classroom. A student can go up to the board, interact with it if they need to, and be able to keep track that way. So those are just some ideas there. And then this is Fiverr, our social emotional learning. And this is just ways to display your Fiverr number. I cut out the little Fiverr people and I put them on popsicle sticks. And so my nonverbal students can just hold up a popsicle or hold up one of the Fiverr men and tell me, how they're feeling or show me how they're feeling. They can also put the different color beads just on there. And, obviously I know that the beads correspond to a number. So that's just some options for Fiverr and some of the other social emotional things we do in whole brain teaching. All right. And then I think that is it. Okay. My last thing is sometimes we're not going to have all the answers. Don't feel like you have to have all the answers to what to do to be more inclusive, how to make things accessible. Sometimes ideas pop into our heads and you know what? We should just use our brainy creativity, try it out. If it doesn't work, it's okay. We're still cool. We're going to try something else. So sometimes doing something for a student can take a lot of trial and error on our end as teachers. So don't be afraid of that. So just if you come up with an idea or you think, oh man, I'm going to try this and Johnny will hopefully respond, then try it. And the only thing we can do is try, right? Mm-hmm. So that's my last point. Use that brainy creativity and think outside of the box. And I've had my high school students tell me, because I teach a college class, they said, Mrs. Lozano, I have never had a teacher that taught outside of a box. They said, you don't fit into a box at all. You just teach way outside of the box. So I took that very well. I said, I thank you for the compliment because I try. That's exactly what I try to do. Laura or Don, do you guys have anything to add there?
There is.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, there was one question that popped up in the chat. If you're using digital super improver cards, how do the students get access to them, like to their own card? Can you kind of talk about how a digital version works?
Good idea. So I know many teachers do this different ways. I know that a couple years ago, there was a digital super improver that included the names, so the physical card, like a student can go click on their name and see their individual cards, and it would update on an Excel sheet. I'm not sure who did that or how they did that, but it was neat. The other thing you could do is I kept mine in a Google, so I just kept individual cards. I would actually just copy and paste the card onto a Google slide and just gave students access to that particular slideshow, and they would find their name and then they would see their star card. They would see everybody else's star card, but I would just update the name or update the cards as they kind of leveled up. I had an alphabetical list of all of my students, and they just found their name and checked on their stars. So I did that, just gave everybody access to that. There's various ways you can do this. Some just have their digital display up all day, like on a tab on their smart board, and kind of refer back to it, as they need it. So those are just some options to do that. I hope that helps a little bit.
Here's another question. Do you think a child that has ADHD will have trouble doing all the gestures that we use?
Ooh, I love this question. No, they will not. Actually, I have found in my teaching and my parenting, both of my girls were recently diagnosed with ADHD. My oldest has been doing whole brain teaching since she was like 5 months old. I'm not even kidding. And they need that input and movement and everything else. We will talk about actually what to do about that tomorrow and probably something next week, when I can go over kind of what this looks like for maybe a kiddo that can get dysregulated really quick. Is there any other questions that popped up?
Nope, I think those were the only questions I saw anyway.
All right, real quick, I would like to show you all how to alt text a picture. So give me just a moment. I am going to share my screen and pray this works.
While you're doing that, can you explain what alt text even is? Until I met you, I didn't even know it existed, and I didn't know what it meant.
So alt text or alternative text, can everyone still hear me? Hang on, can you guys all still hear me? Okay, great. I can't see you on the other screen, so bear with me. So alternative text is what screen readers use. So what we use as blind people to read pictures or to know what a picture looks like for our screen readers. So that's what I'm going to do really quick. I'm going to turn on my screen reader. It is going to be amazingly obnoxious. I apologize, but I'm going to show you what this sounds like and looks like to me if I come across the picture without alt text, and then I'm going to put some in and I'll show you what it sounds like, looks like with alt text. All right, give me 2 seconds. Okay, that is my screen reader starting up. Okay.
No. Room prep. Accessible displays WBT inclusive Google Slides tab content share.
Okay. So
image selected.
So I just clicked on the image of Coach's book, Whole Brain Teaching for Challenging Kids, 2nd edition. And you can see and hear that it didn't tell me anything about what this picture is. Okay. I'm going to do the same thing for color writing.
Image selected.
All it says is image selected. I don't know what the image looks like. I don't know what the image is. So what I'm going to do, and this is in Google Slides, you can do it in Microsoft Word, all of your basic word processing, PowerPoint, all that have a way to alt text. So I'm going to go to
menu submenu.
I'm going to go to
Control plus
alt text. I'm going to say this is color writing.
space. This double and space 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 T E T 1 space.
Okay.
Document. Title, color, writing.
So now
All text.
here
Image
is
selected.
here's the whole brain teaching for challenging kids. It just says image selected, right? You heard that. There's nothing, didn't tell me anything about the book. Now I'm going to go over to color writing where I added alt text and listen to what it says.
Alt text title, color writing, alt text description, color writing by Chris Biffle, image selected.
Okay, so that tells me a lot more about the picture that I'm seeing. So I hope that helps some of you that are doing things digitally. It does take a little bit of time. And like I said, resources, but again, planning intentionally and doing.
StreamYard.
Whoops.
Clickable banner landmark. Show hit.
I'm going
Zoom,
to turn this
NVDA,
off. I apologize.
Exit NVDA dialog. What would you like to do?
I want to exit.
Oh.
Thanks. All right. So I am done with all the content. Is there any questions that popped up?
LaKedria, can I just mention something really quick?
Yes.
The thing I love about the inclusivity that you're describing here is that you can use that for your entire classroom. So like you said at the beginning, not just assuming that our kids don't need something tactile, do that super improver card, just set it up that way for all your kids at the beginning of the year. I just think that's such a great idea. To add that, we always talk about adding that funtricity in. I mean, let's say you don't have a student that has needs visual accommodations or anything, but you could still do that just as a fun tactile, give those kids that sensory input, right? Mm-hmm. We all need that sensory input. So I just love all these ideas for that reason. You can just use them whenever.
Yes. Thank you. Yes. Like I said, I'm using creativity to come up with some of this. Some of this literally comes to me in my sleep when I get some. So, oh, you want the name tag for the WBT poster? I can send that. I literally made that on the fly. So yes, I can post that later. I will do that. Excellent.
I'm glad you knew what that meant because I didn't know there was a name tag.
Oh yeah, I literally created it to show like that's an option for bringing the information to the students, so you don't have to have it hanging up and things like that. All right, everyone. Well, there is another session tomorrow. We're going to talk about inclusivity and using the magic circle. So that is at 5 p.m. Eastern tomorrow. If you're available, I am here. I think Weston's coming with us. So, all right. Well, thank you all. Thank you for hanging in there for our first live. That's exciting. Have a great day, everyone.